Good afternoon, Alex Cole. How are you today on this Friday, May 14th?
Good afternoon, Mr. Wood. What a week.
What a week. Up and down, roller coaster ride.
Yep, yep.
Let's dive into a quick flight path review for all of our subscribers and the listeners here on YouTube. Starting with a look at the US dollar. We saw that rolling over back into its no-go trend after with really spending all of 2021 so far in sort of a counter trend up move. And it looks like the damage done last Friday continued through this week. A little bit of a bounce, but we're still healthy in that no-go trend. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think that the lower high has been put in place right about here. We had the lower low, like you said, at the end of last week. It really moved strongly lower. Rallied this week against the sort of bearish volatility in the markets, but has today, anyway, is ending the week, I think, having set a lower high. And we can see that we've sort of been turned away again by this zero line from below. So dollar seems to be fairly settled now in that no-go trend.
excellent, excellent. And then looking at where that could have the greatest effect. Obviously, we saw in 2020 a lot of those trends in emerging markets and commodities sort of taking shape in the face of a very weak U.S. dollar. Hoping to see some of those tailwinds pick up. Obviously, this week was kind of contradictory for a lot of trends in the marketplace. We're still waiting to see how Friday finishes, and we're having a pretty strong close so far today. But let's take a look first and foremost at the emerging markets (EEM) just on a weekly basis. Show us that long term.
This is the weekly chart here, and as you can see, we're still in that max squeeze that we were talking about last week.
Mm-hmm.
And it has struggled this week, I think, as everything has, and it hasn't broken out of that squeeze either direction. So we're still waiting to see what happens here. It's been very, very choppy this week, as we'll see on the daily chart. But in the long-term weekly for the emerging markets, go trend still in place, but max squeeze now on the zero line. So we're looking to see if it can bounce and resume moving higher in this go trend, or if the go trend will be threatened with any kind of momentum move to the negative environment.
Absolutely, and the healthy respect for the long-term trend. We're certainly seeing that. The confirmed momentum move throughout 2020. A lot of digestion going on for those huge moves last year, and it'll be interesting to see if this is the beginning of a rollover into a real no-go trend, or if we see the trend resume in its current direction after this sort of stagnant period. Obviously, we know with a go no go squeeze on that weekly time frame, any decisive move in either direction could have some strong move in either direction. So let's dive into that daily chart real quick and look at a little closer detail on this price action as we're getting chopped up in this region.
Yeah, we were expecting and we were seeing the goes come in at the end of last week. We did note, though, that we were at areas that have been resistance in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I think these two horizontal lines of resistance were on the chart. We were commenting that we were right up against levels that had been resistance before. And it did seem to be the case again this week, with really strong movement away from those levels. And in actual fact, now approaching the lows that we saw over here sort of at the end of March. So we're going to be looking here. We've fallen. It's been unable to maintain this go trend, moved back into the no-go, and is seems to have even temporarily found support at these prior lows. But it just hasn't been a great week in terms of any kind of clean determination from a trend perspective. And we noticed that the go no go oscillator had been trying to stay above zero through this whole time, broke back through, and actually now has been moving into negative territory. So if you have any opinion on the market, be careful, because the market will tell you what it wants to do when it wants to do it. So
that's right. The market is there to frustrate the greatest number of investors as possible at all times. But let's just talk for a second about risk management here. If we're up against a resistance zone, obviously at the end of last week, strong trends. We came into Monday morning, looking at emerging markets as a potential spot for a breakout to the upside. But even if you took a position there, you've got a really clearly defined risk reward ratio. I mean, it's very responsible trading and investing to see that the momentum oscillator broke below the zero line. You went from a blue to an aqua trend line first day of the week, and it just continued lower. So you had a lot of signals to set your stops by and to get out quickly, which no harm in taking a very small loss. And obviously, we'll see if this support level holds at those prior lows from March, and then we'll see if we retest that resistance area again. The way I learned it, the more times it knocks on the door, the more likely it is to break through eventually, right?
Yeah. And when it does break, the more significant that'll be.
Right. Soaking up all of that overhead supply. All right, well, let's move on from emerging markets a little bit. Let's talk about the commodities space with the U.S. commodity index just on a daily basis would be just fine.
The daily for the USCI, we were talking about how it's just been such a strong run, and we were saying that we were at these overbought levels for some time, but that can continue until there is some cool off in momentum, and that's what we saw this week. So in the short term, we've seen a counter trend correction arrow saying that there may be some consolidation or at least a pause. That's exactly what we're seeing now in the last couple of days. But of note now is that the go-no-go oscillator is back testing the zero line from above. And remember, if we do continue to see that dollar roll over and stay in the no-go, commodities being priced in dollars, that can have serious implications here. So we're going to watch and see if there is support at the zero line, which might allow this trend to continue. And we'd look to see if that indeed does take out these highs.
Absolutely. And then, knowing that a lot of our subscribers, are following some of these thematic issuance that's coming out of the markets right now as we reopen, vaccine rollout, and the return of the industrial economy. We also know that we've got a lot of global investors out there. So taking a look at just a countrywide exposure through an ETF to Australia, let's take a look and see what that ETF did for investors this week. Obviously, Australia being one of the world's largest producers of raw materials like bauxite and lithium, manganese, gold, lead, you name it, and certainly a choppy week for everyone involved, including Australia. But if you wanted to express that thesis through a diversified ETF, Australia is going to be a place to get a lot of exposure to the natural resources, mining and minerals that we've seen going into the industrial economy, and even just from an equity perspective, how the material sector of the U.S. S&P 500 has performed. So thinking about that Australian ETF, what do you see jumping off the chart for you, Alex?
Like you said, choppiness everywhere this week. We saw a really nice breakout at the end of last week and really came back right away. But what's encouraging, I suppose, is that it has come back but set a higher low. So the go trend that we're seeing here does seem to still be in place. We've got this higher low being set here, and we are again at the zero line on the oscillator. So there was a lot of momentum falling away from some of these trends this week, and that that'll happen when the market's volatile. So really now what we're looking for is there support here, and does that propel price higher and potentially make a higher high, in which case we're seeing higher highs and higher lows, which is nice and healthy in an uptrend. Or do we see a breakdown of momentum, which would be, of course, for concern, and we'd really have to then see if it can stay in sort of positive gains territory, really, for this go trend.
Brilliant. Yeah, nice to see that lower trend line holding, and certainly for longer term investors, that daily chop, we can smooth that out, look at a weekly or a monthly chart and see how this trend has been performing over a longer period. But let's dive into an individual mineral. If we've got some folks who are looking for really high beta, they want direct exposure, nothing diversified. If we take a look at copper, just to see how that's been performing after such an incredible bull run.
Yeah, again, it's nothing unusual. I mean, it's been a tough week all around, but that's what happens in trends. Price moves higher, then it corrects. Price moves higher, then it corrects. And so we broke out above this prior high from end of February, and we had a really nice strong run up here. And then we get this counter trend correction arrow highlighting that it may now, in the short term, come back. And so not necessarily unhealthy. It's a shame if you got in at the top of this, at this high here, but this go trend is in place, and this is a pullback, but not yet a change in trend. Some weakness coming through in the aqua bars, oscillator approaching zero, but to be expected when there has been such a rally here from this last go signal all the way up to these highs. It would be unreasonable to expect a straight line, right? So we're going to see these pullbacks, and hopefully if we find support at the zero line, this is a healthy correction and an uptrend.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be looking to see how we close for the week, and certainly watching these trends through next week. As we come to the end of this flight path review, just bringing it down to some individual equities that were real standouts at the beginning of the week. I know we were looking at Lowe's as a potential bid for this, resurgence of the industrial economy and folks doing home improvement here over the summer months. How did that play out through this week?
Well, not terribly well, Tyler, to be honest.
Yeah.
We were talking about it here on this breakout above prior highs, and that was looking really, really, really positive. However, it hasn't fallen out of the go trend, and we can take some, I guess, some solace in the fact that it seemed to stay above the support that we find here from the previous low.
Sure.
We seem to have sort of settled at least at or above those levels. Oscillator is really struggling around sort of that interplay with the zero line, trying to make up its mind, but it's not a dead play just yet, but didn't quite break off to the races as we thought it might after this breakout. But that's kind of false breakouts, okay, but it's still in trend. Seems to be holding this prior low, but for the week, it was a bad week, as we saw across the world. Really, for equities, there was a lot of chop this week.
Yeah, year two of a bull market can be very frustrating. For those of you who just got started in 2020, this is how the market teaches us the lesson that not everything goes up in a straight line, and just like prior periods, 2010. 2002 and 3, we're seeing a lot of that rotation, a lot of choppy ranges as the market digests what were really incredible gains out of 2020. Yeah. Alex, anything you want to end with here on this Friday afternoon, March 14th?
Sure. I was looking at Baxter International. I like the look of this chart. Let me just make sure I pull it up. There it is. I'd like the look of this chart, not from just to be clear, not from a going long perspective. I like the look of the chart. It's technically doing what we like to see. This neckline broken, go trend over, no go identified, retest of the neckline, go no go oscillator previous to the change in color, broke below zero on heavy volume. So at this level, you could be looking at perhaps, even potentially taking a short position and expecting a rollover and a move lower. And of course, anything above this trend line would tell you you're wrong. So you could set a fairly tight stop in here. But a nice setup for a move down after seeing, is this a head and shoulders? Whatever it is, there's support at this neckline. Neckline is broken. We're retesting the neckline. And we've gone into negative territory in the oscillator on heavy volume. So Baxter International, nice looking chart. but not looking good in terms of where price might be headed.
Yeah, a nice looking short idea.
Yep.
Appreciate that, Alex, and looking forward to seeing you next week for another flight path review. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you taking a listen. And as always, if you want more information, head to gonogocharts.com. Talk to you soon.
Take care.